This is Volo, the friendly merchant man we meet at the start of our journey in Pokemon Legends Arceus. He is a smart merchant, showing us how Pokemon battles work, giving us useful tips for catching wild Pokemon, and some free samples of useful items. Yep, totally a nice guy, nothing suspicious about him at all. Wait, why do I hear piano music? Okay, so actually, Volo is the main antagonist in these games who has set out to meet Arceus, subdue its powers, and then use them to recreate the world. He is so evil that after you beat his normal team, which is almost the same as Cynthia's, he brings out Giratina, which you have to take down not once, but twice. Now thankfully, we were there to stop him in his tracks, but what would happen if we weren't? You can find out how things would go if Ingo or Kamado tried to stop Volo in these other runs I've done, but to be honest, if we, the main character, weren't there, I'm not even sure if Volo would end up at the top of Mount Coronet trying to fight us in the first place. That's because throughout the game, he has us go collect the different type plates from all of these various noble Pokemon, alphas, and legendaries. So in a world where the protagonist doesn't get sent back in time by Arceus, what would Volo do? My best guess is that he tried to recruit another sucker to help him out, or just do it himself. And today I want to find out if that latter statement is actually possible. Could Volo single-handedly collect all of the type plates, subdue Arceus, and destroy Hisui? To find out, I decided to play through Pokemon Legends Arceus as Volo, using the same Pokemon and movesets as this benevolent merchant. And that instantly threw me in a pickle since this man has illegal Pokemon. For starters, his first Pokemon is a level 5 Togepi, but the lowest level wild Togepi you can find in this game is at level 35. And last time I checked, there is no breeding in this game, so how the heck did he get a level 5 egg? The second Pokemon we see on his team is also somewhat illegal, because he also has a level 22 Gibble. I say somewhat because you can catch Gibble at that low a level in the Wayward Pass, but we don't have access to that area until much later in the game. So while this Pokemon is technically legal, I don't have a way to catch one this early on. To solve this Pokemon availability problem, I decided to breed a baby Togepi and Gibbo in Pokemon Shield version and then transfer them over into the Volo run through Pokemon Home. Thankfully, we can access the pastures early on and get our real team ready right after we complete the first capture tutorial in the game. And if you're wondering why I also brought in Gibbo along with the Togepi, it's because I tried to do it with just Togepi and this poor egg fails miserably. He needs a little buddy. That would be Gibbo. Now that we have our team and outfit ready to go, it was time to battle a Survey Corps trainer that Volo could try to sucker into doing some work for him, Akari. Beating her in a battle was easy, even without a ground type move on our Gibbo, but getting her to help is hard because she doesn't seem to be on the best terms with her Pokemon, and I don't know how reliable that would make her in terms of battling, so solo mission it is. Our first order of business is to visit the Obsidian Fieldlands and solve their frenzied noble Pokemon problem that totally was not caused by us. Nope, not at all. But before we can go check up on the Weirdeer, we have to take on its warden Mai, who has a surprisingly bulky Munchlax. Well, it's bulky in the special department, which is also where most of our hard-hitting moves happen to be. But bad news for her is that our Gibble does pack a pretty strong physical move, and now that we've got Mai's approval, we can go up to the Noble seat and claim that's not a Noble, and it's not a frenzied Pokemon either, it's just an alpha Pokemon causing trouble. Surely nothing Volo can't handle. We try to be funny by using an agile style attack and then deal damage with Bulldoze, but a little Gibble is just a tad weak and squishy. And our egg, well, that's more fragile than my self-esteem. So I went back to Jubilife where I could talk to Zisu and ask her to teach my Pokemon some more powerful moves, like the super effective Aero Ace. Hey, that's our move! But it's okay since Gibbo got to do a lot more damage this time around. Then Togepi could tank through one attack and finally finish off this alpha with a cute little Draining Kiss. He's a beta now. And as a thanks for getting rid of the pesky loud cricket, we got ourselves the Mind Plate from the noble Weirdeer. To get the other plate, we'd have to make our way to the Eterna Forest and once again get the approval of the local warden, Leon. The good news for us is that Leon uses a Goomy, which is a baby dragon weak to dragon type moves like Twister. And while it can dish out some decent damage with its bubble attacks, it's not enough to win against Volo. However, we're not done yet, because the Pearl clan seems to be more cautious, having its leader Irida step up to test us as well. And she is a real challenge since she has a Glaceon, an Ice-type Pokemon which happens to be turbo effective on ground dragon types like our poor little Gibble. This means it's up to Togepi to carry here. We go for the Tri-Attack, which managed to also burn the Glaceon, then use the Draining Kiss to recover some health before the Glaceon could attack us again, giving us just enough health to bulk through and finish the battle with another Draining. Missed. Thankfully, Irida got greedy and went for a quick attack, which failed to knock us out, and then the damage from burn finished off her Pokemon. It's a scuffed win, but a win nonetheless. Though now we have to take on an actual frenzied noble, and if I were Volo, I might start questioning my life choices. One problem I have with the frenzied noble fights in this game is that they're much more of a skill check for the player's ability to dodge than an opportunity to battle a strong Pokemon, and most of them only give you a small window to actually do so. In reality, managing to calm down these nobles really comes down to a character's physical abilities, but for the run itself, we'll just assume that the character can dodge around enough to not get cut in half like this tree, and then use the Pokemon battle as an opportunity to actually weaken the noble. In Volo's case, Cleaver spells trouble using Stealth Rock for some between turn damage, tanking Twisters like their warm summer breeze, and then using Air Slash to cut down our lead. This means it's all up to Togepi, whose only strategy this early on is to spam kisses and hope it doesn't get one-shot. But it's a strategy that works, so can't argue with results. Having heard that we can do something about the frenzied nobles, Arezu from the Diamond clan comes to personally request our help in the Crimson Mirelands, but we can't go there just yet because we haven't filled up enough of our Pokédex. I guess that's why Volo chose to be a part of the Ginkgo Guild and not the Survey Corps. Being a merchant gives him a lot more freedom to move around and do what he wants. Unfortunately, I don't get that freedom, so I gotta go catch some Pokemon. Be right back. Anyways, before getting to leave to the next location, Akari decides to challenge us to another battle using her newly caught Pokemon, Mime Jr., which absolutely bodies our poor little Togepi. Thankfully, Gibbo is strong enough to finish it off and knows Bulldoze, meaning we can easily knock out her Pikachu. And now that Akari is out of the way, we can finally go to the Crimson Mirelands. And our boy Volo instantly gets distracted by a bunch of ruins and gets mugged by the Misfortune Sisters. But what's even worse than Volo getting robbed is that they stole something from the ruins. So of course, we gotta go get our things back. But first, we gotta catch another Pokemon just in case, especially since it appears along the way. But do. And we can also evolve our Togepi so it won't be a helpless little egg anymore. Also, not to ruin the Togepi line for you or anything, but why does the evolved form become the same color as the eggshell? What happened to the yellow hue of the cute little creature within? Is this Pokemon like the eggshell? Is that what's going on here? I don't know, but just something for you to think about. Meanwhile, we need to make sure that these three think twice before trying to rob Volo or some ruins again. So we challenge them to a battle, and by them, I mean only Coin and her Toxicroak. It hits pretty hard, but we could just use an Agile style Bulldoze to deal some minor damage, which also gives us the opening to attack a second time and use a strong style version of the attack to quickly win the battle. Now that we've returned the stolen wall fragments back to the ruins, Old Lady Kalaba agrees to let us meet her noble Pokemon without having to battle her. But we still have to battle the bear, who uses baby doll eyes to lower our attack. Since we know this thing ain't cute, we just go for a strong style poison powder, that way we can get some between turn damage, and there it is, the true nature of this bear. Gibbo is out next, using Bulldoze while also getting the baby doll eyes treatment, moments before getting roughed up by the bear. That leaves us with just Togetic, who finally knows a move better than Draining Kiss, finishing off the bear and curing it of its frenzy, thanks to Kalaba's Toxic Gone medicine. Could they just not have used this the entire time, instead of having us throw random bombs at the frenzied nobles? Having collected our Earthblade as a thanks, we head back north only to stumble on our dear Commissioner Arezu, who has fallen and sprained her ankle, I think. But that's okay because we're now friends with Kalaba and she seems to have medicine for everything. While she treats Arezu, we take the bombs she's prepared and make our way towards another frenzied noble. On the way, we helped set up another camp for better travel, got to evolve our Gibbo into Gabite, and then also tried to evolve Badoo. Keyword, tried, because as it turns out, this thing evolves with affection, which in this game means sending it out a ton of times to fetch random items from the overworld and making sure it doesn't faint in battle. Which was the hard part because these Gravelers that I wanted to fight show less mercy than my teammates in Overwatch. Anyways, all that meant was that I had to avoid battles and just focus on having it fetch items for me, which worked out well because this cute little guy managed to evolve shortly before reaching our destination, Brava Arena, where we had to face off against the Dancing Lilligant. We instantly go for the Poison Sting, which does manage to poison our enemy. Then we follow up with Venoshock, which does a lot of damage if the enemy is poisoned, and it hits so hard that it instantly knocked out the Dancing Flower, earning us the Metal Plate. Having calmed another set of Nobos, Volo gets a moment of rest back at Jubilife, where he can buy some cooler looking clothing and teach his Pokemon some stronger looking moves. Or at least moves that the in-game Volo uses in battle, because I always try to match the character's movesets in my runs, and that's why Roselia is gonna be running spikes for the rest of this video. After a good night's rest, we get yet another invitation to deal with, a ghost? So apparently the previous Noble in the Kobold Coastlands passed away, and now their vacant seat seems to be haunted, at least according to reports from several Survey Squad members. You'd think they called it Ghostbusters or something, but I guess that's my job now. Ghostbuster Volo reporting for battle. Of course she wants to battle. But this time, Irida is a little unfair, doing a 2v1 match where she uses Baby Doll Ice to weaken my dragon and then Ice Beam to blast it away. But we got to attack first with Iron Head and did some major damage, so our Roselia could finish it off with an Energy Ball. Now we just had to deal with the much weaker Eevee and finally get to explore. After a long trek up some cliffs, we get to meet Palina and her two little Growlithe. One of them is the late Lord's child, and the other is Volo's next Pokemon! They did not learn their lesson! And of course they run off to Fire Spit Island, so now we definitely have to get over there and beat their, solve this ghost problem. But in order to do that, we'll need to get some special food to tame the Noble Basculegion, and to do that, we'll need to go to this hand-looking peninsula. There we find an old man being mocked by a Chatot, so we swipe it away with our Dragon Claw, and then give the old guy some breathing room to set up a camp. From there, we wait until the sun sets and ghosts come out, then catch ourselves a Dusclops who uses its Dark Pulse attack to help us cook up some food for the fish. And just like that, we had ourselves a ride to Fire Spit Island and a splash plate for good measure. Now that I think about it, why didn't these Nobos just give their plates to their wardens? Makes me wonder if there was anything special about the main character lore-wise, but I don't want to ponder about it too much, because I'd rather not imagine what else Volo might do to get those plates if they weren't just handed over to him. Anyways, after making our way to this volcanic island, we finally found the Misfortune Sisters and their ghost. Two birds with one stone sounds like a great deal, except this time we have to fight three of them at once. Well, one by one, but still. And this battle turned out to be an extra difficult one since Gabite would get one-shot by the Abomasnow, or Roselia would get one-shot by the Toxicroak, and Rhydon would just obliterate her Togetic. And I know what you're gonna say, why don't you just switch around the order of your Pokemon? Well, I tried that, and unfortunately, Roselia is too weak to take down the Abomasnow, Togetic always gets one-shot by the Toxicroak, and while Gabite can take down the Rhydon, in 2 turns, it doesn't have enough HP left over to even touch the Gengar. So we're gonna have to come up with some other plan. One option was to go back to Jubilife and buy a shiny stone from Simona, which we could use to evolve either Togetic or Roselia, but we didn't have enough community service points to get this item. In theory, we could spend the next several days exploring the wild, looking for lost satchels or distortions in hopes of getting enough MP or a random shiny stone. But before committing to the long game, there was something else Volo could try. Sure, I joked about the second Growlithe going on Volo's team, but he does actually have one on his canonical team, and this is where Growlithe spawns, so what if we just went to catch a wild one instead of relying on the one that got stolen? Well, this can sort of work, except the first one I found is at level 41, definitely a bit above the level cap, and a bit beyond the will listen to my commands cap. Thankfully we managed to find another one after wandering around for a bit, and even though it was a bit under leveled, we could make it work. This time we would lead with our new teammate who has a powerful 4 times effective fire type move, but then just gets one shot. But this gives me the opening to send out Togetic and have it blast away the Abomasnow with a strong style air slash. When the next battle starts, Gabite is now considered to be at the lead of the party, which means we can just one-shot the Toxicroak with an Earth Power. And then we get to do some major damage to the Rhydon before getting knocked out. After that we follow up with the Roselia who can finish it off with an Energy Ball, and that leaves us with just the Gengar who uses an agile and normal attack to quickly knock out our Rose. Togetic deals some major damage with a strong style air slash, but it isn't enough to get the knockout. However, fortune smiles upon us as the Gengar misses its hypnosis attack, giving Volo the opening to attack one more time and seal our victory. Seeing our epic battle got the little Growlithe all motivated enough to evolve without a Firestone and instantly get hit with the Frenzy, which makes it intimidating enough to scare away the Misfortune Sisters. But also, now we have to fight this thing. It happens to be very weak to ground type moves, but not weak enough to get one shot. We could finally let our new teammate do something other than faint in battle, and got ourselves another victory and the Flame Plate. Having resolved this ghostly case, Volo returns to Jubilife where he's greeted by Adamant, head of the Diamond Clan. And just like expected, he asks us to quo yet another frenzied noble. But we have to battle him to prove that we're strong enough for the task, so here we go again, 2v1. Our poor little Growlithe keeps getting one shot, but our Roselia is able to take revenge on the Leafeon. This time, the low-level Eevee actually ended up being a problem, spamming quick attacks to deplete our health, baby doll eyes to deplete our damage, and a strong style move to deplete our morale. That's our SAT word of the day, deplete. And now that Gabite has taken care of that pesky Eevee, I can finally go catch more wild Pokemon because I don't have enough stars to go to the next area. And then I can finally head to the Coronet Highlands, which is where early game Volo would have gone to catch his Gibble. But instead we get to follow around Old Man Ingo through the tunnels of the Wayward Cave and take on Melly, who does not want us to cure his noble Pokemon of the Frenzy. What a fool this man is! Everyone knows that this gives you an affinity buff. I know it's the wrong video game, but still. Anyways, he leads with a Skuntank, which misses its Night Slash, giving our Growlithe the opening to attack with Fire Fang twice, but it knocks us out regardless, so we still need Gabite to help finish the fight. From there, we go through a cool looking query where Volo asks Ingo about his memories from the other side of the rift. Unfortunately, this train conductor doesn't remember anything, so the two continue on and stumble upon a Ginkgo Guild colleague who asks us to help find this little Bronzar's friend and give it a free potion, because after all, this land is dangerous, even for the Pokemon that call it their home. Man, no wonder Volo wants to remake this world. Anyways, we now have a camp set up and make our way further up the mountain, but of course that just means it's time for yet another test by Ingo himself. He leads with a Machoke, which pets our puppy a little too aggressively, so we return the same kind of energy with our Roselia. Not so fun now, is it? Out next is a Gliscor who simply one-shots our flower, and then uses Mud Bomb on our dragon in hopes that we don't get to hit it, but we take the gamble with a strong style Dragon Claw, which lands and knocks out his flying Scorpion. And that leaves Ingo with just Tangela, which quickly spouts some paralyzing powder our way, then uses Energy Ball to take down Gabite. Lucky for us, we still have Togetic on the team, which can use an Air Slash to finish off this noodle monster and win us the battle. Since Ingo has seen our skill in battle, he calls upon his noble Sneasler to give us the Toxic Plate and carry us up the mountain inside this cute little basket. What are you looking at? Once we make it up to Moonview Arena, our good friend Melly is once again blocking the way, but instead of just Skuntank, he also sends out a Zubat and Scorpy because he is a sore loser. And of course, Growlithe gets one shot. We follow up with Gabite, who uses its Dragon Claw to take care of the Scorpy and then the Zubat, making things even once more. But Melly stacks 2 Night Slashes back to back to knock out our dragon. We try to fight back with an Energy Ball, but this Skuntank knows Flamethrower, so our poor little Rose did not last long, leaving Volo with just his Togetic. I was starting to panic here, so I set up an Agile style Calm Mind for some extra buffs, and then attacked with a strong style Air Slash, which happened to do enough damage to knock out Melly's last Pokemon, and finally give us access to Moonview Arena, where we get to see this very angry ball guy. And this thing means business because it will throw random Electrode at us who self-destruct to get in our way. I also decided to have Gabite in the lead since Growlithe kept getting one shot anyways, and went for a strong style Dragon Claw, which managed to do quite a lot of damage, and then I could follow up with Growlithe, which would finish off the fight for Gabite, returning all the favors from the previous fights. With the Frenzy gone and the Zap Plate in hand, we could now return to Jubilife, where we were once again told to go work on the Pokédex before going to another area. While these forced breaks from the story were partially annoying, they were also a good opportunity for me to go do some side quests and collect some useful items. For starters, there's this Mysterio girl Vessa, who gave me an odd keystone and asked me to help collect 107 lost spirits, which were scattered throughout the region. We also wanted to check out some of the Space Storm distortions, like this one being watched by a member of the Galaxy team, mainly to look for rare items like the Shiny Stone, which we would need to evolve 2 of our Pokemon. Technically, we could just catch the fully evolved versions of our Pokemon in the wild, but considering most of them were the alpha variants who refused to stay inside the Pokeballs, I'd say it's just best to stick with our team as is and evolve the ones we have whenever we get the items. So I decided to just keep going through the story, but was once again stopped in my tracks by Akari. She had finally evolved that Mime Jr. into a Mr. Mime, which is a lot more tricky, using moves to buff up his defenses, Hypnosis to stop me from attacking, and Psychic to one-shot me, so just use the other 2 moves to show off. Rosalia quickly beat it up, but Akari's next Pokemon, Staravia, could just use Brave Bird to one-shot our Rose. We followed up with Gabite, who could finish off the bird, tank several strong attacks from Pikachu, and then one-shot the Electric Mouse with a strong style Earth Power. Finally, we can go to the very cool Alabaster Icelands, where we once again get to battle a Warden, Gyrick, who always reminds me to get out of my chair and do some squats. And now I'm reminding you to do some squats too. 1! He leads with 2 Ice-type Pokemon, but thankful 3, the Frostlass doesn't attack right away, giving our 4-legged friend the opening to use a strong style 5-head move, which finishes off the 6-sided Glalie in a single shot. Except now we get attacked by the Frostlass, but since it was nice enough to wait to the start of the battle, I'll be nice enough to send out our pretty little Rose, which tends to finish off the battle with an energy ball. Whew, that's enough squats for now. But leg day isn't over since we now have to chase around Sabi to get some help from her flying braviary. The good news for us was that this chase took us to an area where we could catch another one of Volo's Pokemon, Riolu. This is also the 3rd Pokemon on Volo's team that requires friendship to evolve, which yet again reminds me that maybe Volo isn't that bad of a guy. He can fake being a merchant, he can fake being our friend, but you cannot fake the friendship requirement for Pokemon to evolve. Speaking of which, it was finally time to get some more evolutions, like finally getting Garchomp. But we also somehow found a random Shining Stone while exploring the area, so together with the one I bought from Jubilife, I had enough stones to evolve both Roselia and Togetic into their final forms. And while we're at it, might as well evolve Growlithe too. Poor thing just keeps getting one-shot, but maybe that won't be the case once it's an Arcanine. After all of the evolutions, we helped these 2 builders meet up near the waterfall and set up another camp, then we made our way up the mountain to Snow Point Temple, which would have Volo jumping with excitement. He seems to love ancient ruins, and these ones come with a puzzle left by people long ago. But little Sabi had to steal the show. She's a warden, so of course we have to battle her and her cute little Pokemon. Man, I thought Melly was a stinky cheater, but she takes the cake. Thankfully, Arcanine could attack first, using Rock Slide to take care of the Magmortar, and then Crunch to weaken the Electivire before the Rhyperior could finish it off. Then we followed up with Roserade, which one-shot the Rock Giant, and finally used those spikes to finish off the Electric Ape. And unlike every other time, we actually had to fight the non-frenzied Noble before getting its approval, which turned out to be pretty easy, since the Hisuian version of this bird is part Psychic type, and we could just use Crunch a couple of times to knock it out. With the Sky Blade in hand, we can now glide down to the upside down iceberg and collect the materials needed to make some bombs for the final Noble. Also, time to do more squats. One thing I did not realize or mention is that Volo actually does show up to all the places we've gone, including the icy cold place. I guess he's all too willing to explore the whole region. Also, all 3 of the wardens he's talked to on screen happen to be from the Pearl clan. This is a fact I cannot forget later in the game. Okay, I'm all warmed up, so it's fighting time! Having Riolu still in the lead was a mistake since it was there to fetch items and not faint, so even though I got to do some major damage, poor little guy also lost some friendship value. But that's okay because we could follow up with Roserade and use Energy Ball to take down this Titan. Seriously, is this thing a Gigantamax or just naturally this large? Either way, Volo's team can take it down, which is all it takes to get the Icicle Plate. And with that, we finish calming down all of the noble Pokemon in this region. But before reporting back to Jubilife, Volo decided to finish collecting all the lost little wisps and bring them back to Vesa, who asks us to meet her near the Shrouded Ruins in the Crimson Mirelands. When we do get there, she tells us that she's the last wisp, and after we return her spirit to the Odd Keystone, a mysterious Pokemon appears. Spiritomb, Volo's final Pokemon. According to all the sources I could find online, the only way to get this Pokemon to appear is to complete Vesa's quest, which means Volo might have another illegal Pokemon on his team, especially in runs where the player didn't bother finding all 107 wisps before that final battle. But for this Volo, it is completely legal and possible, as well as for any Volo where the protagonist does complete this quest. Since these Pokemon can spawn in this area afterwards, they're just very rare. Unfortunately, the Galaxy team is not too happy with all this illegal shenanigans and banishes Volo from Jubilife Village. They wouldn't even let me talk to the other Ginkgo Guild members on my way out of town. Now the main character feels very dejected here, especially after failing to get support from either the Diamond or Pearl clans in the first area of the game. But the real Volo does not care, because he has another home away from home that he can visit at any point in time. The secret retreat where Mistress Kogita lives. Also, both Irida and Adamant randomly show up out of nowhere and offer to help. And considering how much he schmoozed up with the Pearl clan, I think it's safe to assume that Volo would ask Irida to tag along with him, while Adamant distracts the Galaxy team. Now this next section of the game gets pretty interesting because we go to collect parts for the Red Chain, and in the main story, both Volo and our clan head of choice follow us around to the 3 lakes. However, Volo always stays outside and gives us some major lore drops about each location, like how Lake Acuity has seawater, which would make you think its guardian is some sort of sea creature like Overquill, but nope, that's Azov's guardian. This saltwater cave has a Hisuian Zoroark instead. But what's even more odd about all of these conversations is Volo hinting about what could happen if the Red Chain falls in the wrong hands. And when Irida brings up the question if anyone's ever completed the trials of these lakes, Volo quickly changes the topic, which makes me think that he actually did complete these trials and made the Red Chain, which is probably how he got to meet Giratina prior to the events of the game. It would also explain why he didn't want to go inside the caves, as any of the 3 Lake Guardians would instantly recognize him. And what's even more sus is that you have to go to the ruins where Spiritomb appear in order to put together the pieces and make the actual Red Chain. So I'm pretty sure that our crafty little merchant here has made one of these before and is just playing dumb while waiting for the world to burn. Still, it's nothing more than a theory. However, what is certain is that Volo would go up to Mount Coronet to see what will come out of the portal. But could he beat Commander Kamado to get that front row seat? Well, we have plenty of Dark-type moves to take care of his lead Braviary, a powerful Garchomp which makes Kamado switch out his Snorlax. I didn't even know trainers could switch out in this game, but he didn't know that we have Ironhead which could easily take care of his pesky Clefable. Unfortunately, that makes us too weak to deal with the Snorlax, but we have so many Pokemon to spare that if I were Volo, I wouldn't even care. And despite having a type advantage, we could finish off his Golem and get a front row seat at the temple. Since Volo would likely team up with the Pearl clan, he'd get to meet Palkia at the summit, which means Volo also gets a Palkia, right? Well, Story Volo just sits to the side to watch, but we're required to bring Palkia along since that's our plot armor in a cutscene, and then have one of these fights, where I gotta dodge like crazy and hope I don't miss my one chance at taking on the Pokemon in battle. Which in my case meant having to throw the battle because it just didn't happen the first time round. And if you're curious, I had to run around for about 2 minutes until I got a chance to fight it. It wasn't worth it either because the battle was just Garchomp nearly one-shotting it, and then Togekiss finishing it off the next turn. But hey, would you look at that? The world is saved. Wait a minute, that wasn't Volo's plan. He wanted to destroy this world and make a new one, not save it. And we didn't even get a plate from this fight. We took on 2 dragons and we got 0 dragon plates. But that's not enough to stop in-game Volo, and it's not enough to stop me. So the next thing we have to do is go fight an angry bee? But not before I land inside a tree. Although it seems like this is the only plate that Volo was able to locate by himself. For all of the other plates, we'll have to ask Mistress Kogita. So we just get a bunch of quests that help us find the other plates. For starters, we have to fight Kamado again, which was just as easy as last time. We also went back to catch the 3 lake spirits, which gave us the dragon plate, that's where it was. Then we took on a 4-legged piece of poop. We stole even more glory from Melly at Moonview Arena. And last but not least, we went to visit the Reggie Temple to catch this giant golem. What's most interesting about that last one is that in the past games, you'd need to have the original Reggie trio in your team in order to encounter Regigigas. But this time around, we just needed to have the 3 type plates that match those Reggies, which makes me wonder if the golems were made using those plates. And it also made me wonder what powers these plates actually hold, especially since we find out that Kageta has been using the fairy plate as a cutting board. Really makes me wonder if that's why she has such a long lifespan, or why the mysterious Enamorus is drawn to her. But that's a question for a smarter YouTuber to answer, because we've collected all 17 type plates, and that means it's time to head back to the Temple of Sinnoh and try to summon Arceus again. Now typically, this is where we would battle Volo and stop his evil plans, but since we are Volo, we get to skip right to the reward. For collecting all 18 type plates, we get a super secret special item, the Azure Flute. Well, technically our Celestica flute gets transformed into an Azure Flute, so I'm not sure if Volo would actually get this item unless he brings Irida along with him or is secretly carrying a flute in that giant bag of his. Either way, getting this item is only part of the quest to meet Arceus, because unfortunately, all it can do right now is play some music. If we want to meet the CEO of Sinnoh, we first have to seek out all Pokemon. This includes actually catching Giratina, completing the dex entries for the 3 regular genies so that we can encounter Enamorus, and waiting for a full moon for the most annoying evolution method in Pokemon history. Okay, now the flute should work. What do you mean nothing happened? I did seek out all Pokemon. Wait, no, I'm missing one? But who? Oh, I gotcha now, you little turd muffin. Alright Arceus, I've collected all of the plates and I've collected all the Pokemon. Now listen to my sick beats and show yourself. Pikachu, peekaboo. Arceus?
Ah.
I've wanted to ask you.
No.
Wait, why do I hear boss music? So yeah, the whole encounter with Arceus is just a big mechanical test of dodging, and just like with the other nobles and legendaries, I had to wait for an opening to actually enter battle, and if you're wondering, this one took 3 minutes of dodging to make that happen. I felt like I was playing Elden Ring for a while, but once we entered battle, it wasn't that bad at all. Arceus set up a Calm Mind and changed it to a Fairy type so he could nuke our Spiritomb, so we followed up with Roserade to deal some major damage, but he changed into a Flying type to one-shot Roserade, and I'm starting to feel like the only reason we had to collect all these plates was so that this thing could just use cheats on us during the battle. Anyways, we sent out Togekiss next, since that's Volo's starter, and used a strong style Moonblast to knock out the Holy Llama. So, if you were to ask, could Volo defeat all the Pokemon needed to collect the plates? Yes. Could Volo take down any trainer that tries to stop him? Yes. Could Volo tame Arceus and use its power to destroy the world? Well, if he had to dodge a barrage of meteorites for 3 minutes in low Earth orbit, probably not. But if he just has to win in a Pokemon battle, then yes, absolutely. So there you have it, Legends Arceus as Volo. Now in the few moments before he deletes the save file, I'd like to say thanks for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and leave a comment down below with who you'd like to see next.